Thurgood Marshal. To be Marvin Bird. Thurgood Marshal was born in 1908 in Baltimore, Maryland. He was an African American and his grandfather has once been enslaved people. By the time Thurgood was born, slavery was against the law. Even so, Thurgood was a child. The South was still segregated. Black people were not allowed to eat in many restaurants that served white people. Black people were not allowed to sit in the same streetcars as white people. Black children in the South were not allowed to go to school with white children. Those laws were unfair. At the dinner table, Thurgood's family used to argue about what to do about those laws. Thurgood became very good at arguing. Do you know Thurgood's parents named him Thurgood because he doesn't like to spell his name. He shortened it to Thurgood in second grade. His nickname is Goody. After graduating from Lincoln University and an all-black college, Marshall wanted to go to University of Maryland Law School because he was black. The school would not let him in. Instead, he went to the all-black law school in Howard University. In 1933, he graduated first in his class and became a lawyer. In 1936, he won a first big victory for civil rights. It was against the University of Maryland Law, the same school he tried to attend. Another black student was not allowed in the school because of his skin color. That student took the school to court, saying that keeping black people out of school was illegal. Marshall argued the case and won. Marshall went to argue many cases before the Supreme Court, the most important court in the United States. Marshall argued a case about neighborhoods. He said that people of other races would be allowed to buy homes in the white neighborhoods. Marshall argued another case about segregation on buses and trains. He said that black people and white people should be able to work together. Marshall won these and other cases for the civil rights. In 1954, Marshall argued his most important case of all. In some states, black children have to go to all black schools. Their parents thought this was wrong. Marshall argued that it was unfair to have separated schools for black children and white children. Separate schools were not equal, he argued. Children of all races have to be attended to the same public schools. Once again, Marshall won his case. Every justice on the Supreme Court voted to end the segregation in the public schools. The case inspired the civil rights movement and made Marshall famous. In all, Marshall argued 32 cases before the Supreme Court and won 29 of them. In 1965, he became one of the first black lawyers to argue cases for the U.S. government. Before the Supreme Court, 2 years later, the president chose Marshall to become the first black justice on the Supreme Court. Who is the Supreme Court? For many years, only white men served on the Supreme Court. 9 of the justices were no women and no people of color. Because President chose each for life, it took a long time to make things more equal. The first changed when Thurgood Marshal became a justice. Then the first woman, Sandra Day O'Connor, joined the court in 1981. In 2021, one African American man and 3 women were on the court, including one Latina woman. Marshall still got to argue a lot, but he always argued to make things fair. He upheld the rights of children, women, homeless people, and people in prison. Marshall served on the Supreme Court for 24 years. In 1991, he retired. At that time, reporters asked him if black people were better off than when he joined the court. All Americans were better off when I joined the court. Marshall said, all of them. He died 2 years later. Marshall was a powerful voice for civil rights and a hero to everyone who believed in equality.